Hello and welcome to Silent Creativa. Though Halloween is around the corner, we will make some Halloween lights based on the concept of doll heads, or to be exact, creepy doll heads. I sculpt a doll head out of clay. You can use a vinyl doll head from a big doll, but yeah, though I want to cast this head out of plaster, I will make a mold for it and we will start with the sculpting. Though I made this mold years ago and never planned on making YouTube at this time, I don't have any footage, and though I don't have any two-part silicone left, some drawings have to do the job. For the base sculpting I used regular pottery clay. You can use monster clay if you have, or something else. But for me, it works best with pottery clay. Though I never used monster clay so far, so maybe that would work better. But anyway, to make the mold, you first place your head in a, let's call it, bed of the clay you used, and make sure that they don't fuse with each other, so that you will be able to remove the head out of the bed without any damage. And then you have to build some structure around it. You can use cardboard and a hot glue gun, but make sure that everything is quite tight and there is no way that the silicone can leak through. With a simple shape like this, you don't have to be too careful, but if you have shapes that are a little bit more holes in it or deeper parts, you have to make a mold that has more parts. Today we will only use a two-part mold. So after you embedded everything, you can pour your two-part silicone over it. And after this is cured, you can remove the cardboard for the first time. And be careful with it because the head should stuck inside it and not be removed at this point. And then you can remove most of the bed to have a hole where you can pour your plaster in later. You should leave a small space at the top of the head to prevent the two half of the molds from sticking together. I used some Vaseline, but there are things that are made for this. I didn't have this at the time. And so use something to make sure that they won't stick to each other. And then after you removed the clay from the back of the head, you can put some cardboard around it again and pour the second part of the mold. And as soon as this is cured, you should be able to get the two sides of the mold away from each other quite easy, as soon as you remove the cardboard again, of course. And then you should have a nice two-part mold. Before I was pouring the first layer, I made some indents into the clay to make sure that the two molds can stick to each other a little bit better, a little bit safer, that they can have something to grip into each other. Yeah. So this was my quite confusing way to tell you how to make a mold. I hope it was helpful. If it wasn't, there are a lot of great videos about it on YouTube, and some that you can understand. But it has to work for the moment. With a lot of rubber bands, I secured the two halves of the mold to each other And then I mixed my plaster, and I normally do this in 2 layers for the hat. The first one a little bit thicker, and then I pour it in and just shake it around and look inside of it all the time to make sure every bit is covered. And after this is cured for half an hour, I make a second batch of plaster, which is a little bit thinner, and pour this in too, and yeah, shake it around again. And if needed, I add some more, and then I wait for 1 hour to let it cure completely. That depends totally on your plaster, I think. Most of the ones I used were cured in 1 hour, so everything was fine. Then I remove the hat, unmold the hat, whatever, and take a knife and make all the edges a little bit more, yeah, I remove everything that shouldn't be there. And depending on how well you made your mold, there will be more or less. Especially at the top of the hat, you should be a little bit more careful with cutting because it has the tendency to break. What may be okay if you can incorporate it into your design. I did this with one hat too, so not everything is ruined if something breaks off, especially with this kind of hats. And then after this, you can sand it a little bit more and yeah, make sure that everything is nice and fine and as smooth as you like it or need it for your design choices. And yeah, I cut out the eyes with a Dremel tool, but the rest of it I normally do with some normal sanding paper. And now on to our 4 designs. I didn't do this in the order I show it to you. I switched around between the 4 heads, but yeah, I try to show it to you a little bit more organized. So the first one I'm making here is more or less the classic doll, and the first step is to give it a skin color. I used a quite light one because I already plan to use this one on 2 of the other heads too. So if you make more heads, you can mix more color for them. Isn't it quite nice how I always tell you some things that are totally obvious? Ugh. And yeah, then I gave her some lipstick, and with chalk pastels I shaded her face a little bit and gave her insanely bright pink cheeks because I wanted her to look like a creepy doll. And yeah, so I decided that the main doll features, which are bright pink cheeks and insanely painted lashes, should do for her. All the designs that I will make in this video are quite simple. There is nothing too special. If you want to go overboard with it, you totally can do, but I decided to keep them quite simple because when I first made them, I had to make 24 of them, I think. And I had only 3 months to make them. So, yeah, I had to rush it a little bit. And so, as I mentioned, obviously you can be more precise and more extreme with the hat you make for your own. And here we already have the first hats finished. When all of them were ready, I glazed them all together with some acrylic varnish so that none of the chalk pastels will chip off or come off. For the second design, I went with a skull makeup, and basically I just painted the area around the eyes black. The nose covered the nose part with some black. You can obviously cut off the nose for this, but you don't have to. Just coloring it is fine too. Then I made this quite strange looking cheek area and draw on some teeth. And after that was dried, I smoothed everything out a little bit with chalk pastels, which is quite easy too. And this is the design I think that is the fastest one. You can use white if needed, but the plaster I used was already white enough, so there was no need for it. With the second hat done, we will go on to the third one. And for this I used a Dremel and made some slits into the face as if this doll was attacked by whatever, any creepy creature, and died from it. Of course, because we need dead dolls. That is very important. I first made the scratches red, and after this was dried, I gave it 2 or 3 layers of the skin color, and to finish this one, I used again some chalk pastels, this time in different gray tones, and yeah, just shaded the main areas that needed some shading. And when you do this while the color is a teeny tiny bit wet on the surface, it will stick quite nice to it. 3 done, 1 to go. The last one will be more or less a zombie head, and I used one where I destroyed the top part while sanding it, and with a Dremel I just made some designs up while I went. I removed a part of the lips and filed in some teeth just to give it a more creepy vibe. And then I colored the parts that I had made with the Dremel in red. After this was dried, I made the rest again with the skin color. And this time I decided to shade it with some green. I wasn't very pleased with the look, I have to. When I first made these hats, I used the same skin color and then I put some crack luck under it and put another color over it, and that made it quite strange looking. It was like a cracking doll face. This time I thought, only make it green or greenish so that it looks a little bit rotten. And as I mentioned, wasn't crazy about the look. So I decided to go over it again. And for this I mixed up a paint, paste, whatever, with some glue, some acrylic paint, some kaolin, and some sand in it. Because I wanted it to have a quite grainy texture, just to give it a more of a, let's say rotten feel, rotten look. I think you know what I mean. And then I slapped on 2 layers of it, shaded it with some soft pastels again, and in the end, it could be a zombie, it could be a water monster with some damage to its face, but I think it looks quite cool. And when everything was dried, it was time for the varnish, and with that, our 4 creepy doll hats are finished. Just to mention it, you should use LED lights with them and not real candles. I'm not sure how well the plaster could handle real fire, so be safe with it and just use LED lights. And here we have our finished dolls. Doll heads. Creepy things. Spooky things. Halloween lights! I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like to, leave a comment, subscribe. And if you do some of these hats your own, show me your pictures on Instagram or Facebook. Have a nice time, and until next time. Bye.